well, approximately 4 million American students are currently homeschooled. Now, there's varying opinions as to whether that is a good or bad thing. Joining us right now are our lovely moms on the go, Lisa Harst, Molly Pearson, and Allie Dar. How are you ladies?
Good.
Good. Nice to see you. Okay, so you actually do homeschool.
I'm going
You're
to.
going
I have
to.
3 little boys, and I'm going to homeschool them.
Okay,
Yes.
and what made you make that decision?
Just the morality issues. Me and my husband discussed it again last night to figure out what exactly was number one. And it's just, I feel like society's kids are losing track of morality, and it's something I want my kids to have. So I want to focus on forming them whole before I send them to school.
Yeah. Now, was that something you guys ever considered when? Are you considering? No, you're like, no, go to school.
No, and I mean, for me, I work full time, so it's not, we'd have to make a really big lifestyle change in order to do that.
And I think that probably plays into a lot of people's decisions, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that, I don't know that I'm the best person to teach them, really.
I'm sure you'd be a wonderful teacher. What about you, Lisa? Have you ever thought of it?
That's kind of how I feel. I honestly don't know if I feel like more inadequate. I feel like, I mean, could I really teach them enough about history? Probably not. Like,
maybe somebody that has their teaching license is probably.
Right, I just feel like I'm not sure if my children would actually benefit from having me teach them versus having someone else. But I do completely understand like the aspect of like more, like that makes me so nervous. Like when I think of sending my kids to school, I'm just like, oh my gosh. I'm like, Allie, can I send them to your house?
No.
Will you teach them? But
I'm going to teach everybody.
a homeschooling school.
I'm sure it's such a mixture of emotions. Well, and I was also reading, there's so many superintendents out there. I think is it 93%? 93% of superintendents of schools think that homeschooling is a bad idea. Not only because they feel like they're missing out on the learning aspect, but the emotional aspect of connecting with other children. Like, what do you say to that when you think of that?
I think it's not true. I think that my kids socialize awesome already, and they're not even in school.
Yeah.
And I'm going to keep it up with sports and with just going out in public and just being a normal kid.
Yeah, I guess keeping them involved still in a good amount of activities outside of the home, just so they do have that interaction as well. The other thing that I was looking at, the different settings, of course, affect. Dr. Thomas Smedley believes that homeschoolers have superior socialization skills, and his research actually supports that claim. Now, according to this study, home learners ranked in the 84th percentile of social skills, and that's compared to publicly schooled students who were drastically lower in the 23rd. So when you guys hear that, do you think, oh wait, well maybe that is something I should think about. Maybe they are more socially, it's better for them to be at home.
I think that a lot of it depends on the parent, I mean, if you as a parent are not somebody that's going out all the time and, with your kids and taking them places and introducing them to new people and new things, then obviously that's going to play a role into it. And I don't know that that's necessarily a school's fault. My kids are very social now. They'll talk to anybody. And I think part of that is just because my husband and I are like that.
Right.
So, I think that we put a lot of blame onto schools that we as parents need to take responsibility for ourselves.
I think that's a really good point. I know my parents were both teachers in the public school system. My dad for like 40 some years, and that was one of his biggest things. He actually has a book out on education about how when it all comes down to it, no matter whether they're homeschooled or schooled in public schools, it comes down to parenting. It's a matter of being just good parents.
Yes.
All right, ladies, we thank you so much. Of course, you're going to come back again next hour. And joining us right now again are Lisa Harst, Molly Pearson, and Allie Dar. Okay, so we're talking about homeschooling today. 4 million students right now in the U.S. are homeschooled, and Allie has made the decision with her husband to homeschool your children once they're of age, correct?
Yes.
Now, kind of touch again upon why you decided to do that.
We decided from a moral standpoint that homeschooling our kids would be the best option for our family at this point, and we'll revisit it when they get older and maybe send them to schools, but for now we don't feel like they're ready.
Right. Now, we had talked about the last hour that a lot of people think that it doesn't develop kids academically enough or emotionally enough, but a new study has been released by Dr. Thomas Smedley that says homeschoolers ranked in the 84th percentile when it came to mature and well-adapted behaviors, and that is compared to public school students who were drastically lower, and they were in the 23rd percentile. So that is a big difference. So on that note, ladies, you two have decided that your kids are going to actually go to, is it public schools?
Yes.
Public schools, okay.
Yeah, we're thinking probably more private.
Maybe
but
private, okay. And when you hear that kind of thing, you're thinking, oh, well, homeschool, it seems like kids maybe emotionally really do have an advantage. Do you think even for a second, and I know you have a full-time job, right? But do you think even for a second, you think, oh, maybe?
I just honestly don't know if I could do it. Like personally, I just think, I'm not sure I would be smart enough, I guess. I mean, I don't know if, you know, I could teach them as adequately enough as a teacher could.
A teacher that has gone to college
Correct.
and gotten the licenses and everything.
Right.
Okay, now we want to talk about a few comments that you guys have gotten from other moms, some questions, comments about homeschooling. And I think this is a great question from Shannon. And she asked about how does homeschooling work when it comes to applying to colleges? And that is an important thing to think about because you're thinking scores, transcripts, everything, and activities in high school. You know, colleges really look at activities. And she says that they're treated the same. Do you guys know anything more about that as far as like ACT preparation, SAT preparation? I mean, obviously they go and take those things, but she says that she doesn't think that it really has a difference whether you're homeschooled or in public schools. But I would think that with grades, maybe A's, B's, C's, and D's, you know, colleges are still looking at that stuff. Does that factor at all, would you think?
I'm not sure. I think colleges are more open these days to a lot of homeschool kids. So I think all of them take the same standardized testing, and I think you just have to prepare your homeschooled child for the tests and the things they'll have to take to get into the college. But I don't think they're, you know, like more biased, I suppose.
They're not too worried about the involvement in high school sports or activities. Okay.
I think as long as you're involved in something, whether it's like, you know, you can be in travel soccer or I think it's important definitely to involve the kids in something, a club sport or.
And Allie had touched upon earlier how you're going to homeschool, but you realize the importance of keeping the kids involved in a lot of activities outside of the home, not only for the future, but also for their future emotionally and socially. Meeting other kids.
A lot of people bring up the sports issue, and I know Tim Tebow was homeschooled and he still played on his public team, so I know there's a movement towards letting kids, I'm not exactly sure if it's there yet, but letting kids who are homeschooled play on high school teams.
Right, that's great, and everybody of course loves Tim Tebow. I know, of course I didn't love Florida that he played for, but I love Tim Tebow now. And also I want to talk about costs of homeschooling, because I'm sure there's materials that are required, certain books that are required, and I know state to state is different, but Carly on your guys' thread said that it costs typically around $300 per child per year for homeschooling. Which, when you look at the cost differences in this economy, you know, if the parents are fit to teach, and Allie, I have no doubt that you are, it seems like it's a good option. And of course, we had pointed out again earlier, and you guys can touch upon this really quickly if you want, it doesn't matter whether you're homeschooled or you're taught in schools, it comes down to good parenting. I think a lot of times parents want to blame the schools or blame whoever, blame the teachers. And I'm the daughter of two former teachers, and so I feel very passionately about the fact that it starts in the home.
Right. I think, you know, before your kids get to preschool, you're solely responsible for teaching them things. You know, they learn from you. And having a child that's in preschool, you know, every time I pick her up, I make it a point to discuss what she did that day, from what she learned to what they had for a snack to who she played with. And, you know, it's kind of amazing that at the age of 3, you can already see children, you know, forming into little separate groups. And, you know, it's kind of, you run into the instances where, you know, little girls are telling other little girls they can't play with them.
Absolutely.
You know,
so many,
we've made it a big effort to kind of say, you know, here's who you are, here's what you're going to do, here's how you treat people.
Great, ladies. Well, we're out of time, and we appreciate it so much. More information can be found on momsandheels.net, and we look forward to seeing you next week. We'll be right back.